All right. Good afternoon, everyone. How's everyone doing today? We got a last show of the year for RegTech Live, and I got my pal Abby Cheesman here from Skill Scout in Chicago. Say hello, Abby.
Hey guys.
All right, we're going to talk about using video to attract talent today, and she's got some great slides to show us. I've seen this presentation earlier this year and thought it was great, so I wanted to have her on and talk about video. We haven't really done that yet much on the show overall. So let's see who's live. We'll do a few shout outs to the crew. Matt's here, Matt Lazar. Hey, Matt. Daniela, Melissa, Katrina, Patrick, Jasmine, Tina, Mary, and Jeff King. Welcome all. And people are filing in now, Abby, as we hit it up here. So you are the co-founder and CFO of Skill Scout, a company based in Chicago, which does employer videos. So give us a quick history of the company and a little bit more about what you guys do.
Yeah, so maybe about 6 years ago, Elena, my co-founder, and I, we were working at a consulting firm, and we got put on a project of how do we more meaningfully connect people to employment. So we talked to a bunch of job seekers, bunch of companies, and we heard something over and over. It's really hard to know what a job is all about until you've done it before. And so long story short, we started filming behind the scenes. What is it like to be a welder? What is it like to be a nurse? And from there, we really just got started with Skill Scout.
Awesome. And what kind of clients do you work with today? Give us a few examples of.
So we started off working a lot in manufacturing, and now we work with companies that spread industry. So airlines, state governments, nursing, you name it, we filmed it.
Nice. And just give us a quick sense of what a typical shoot would look like, if you would.
Yeah, so we take a research approach to filming. So typically, if you're going to film something, you come with a script and, this is what we're going to talk about. With Skill Scout, we treat it like discovery. So I want to learn as I'm filming with you. I want to hear from the people in the position to know what it's all about filming. And so, we come in, we have a discussion guide. Film days are usually super fun. So we go in, we learn about a workplace from the people that are in the jobs. And so while we know what we might capture, but typically we open it up for discovery.
Nice. All right. Well, let's get to the slides and tell everyone what we're going to learn about today.
So today I'm going to walk you through some tips and tricks, with the idea being that you could go back to your workplace on Monday or tomorrow, if you're a real go-getter, and start filming your jobs. You don't need a huge budget. You don't need a film crew. You can start filming with your phone. And so I'm going to share some examples. I'm going to share some real tactical ways that you can get started.
All right, fire up your slides and we'll get rolling here.
All right.
If the audience has questions, just throw them in the chat there and I'll stop Abby and ask her. And Abby, over to you.
All right. I am getting a little echo. I don't know if that's me.
All right.
Let's test it out. Yeah, I still get it. That's all right.
You sound fine on my end.
Okay. Maybe I'll just turn it down.
Yeah, turn your volume down a bit, maybe.
Perfect. All right. All right, you see my slides?
Yes, we do.
Awesome. So, sassy title, your job host is as boring as this webinar. I'm only kidding. This webinar is not going to be boring. So Chris gave me a great introduction. My name is Abby. I'm a job nerd. I get to film jobs for a living. So I get to see what it's like to be a flight attendant, to work on planes, to be a nurse, to work at the Department of Corrections. I have an awesome team based in Chicago. We have a real intentional strategy to provide opportunities for women in the filmmaking industry, particularly women of color. And one of the things that Elena, my co-founder, she's the one on the end there, we've been really intentional about women of color because our industry is typically super male and super white. And we believe that if you change the story by changing the storyteller, and so you're able to share a little bit more diversity in the stories that you tell if you have a diverse team that's working with it.
Yep.
So we've got to tell.
I love the job nerd title, by the way. I think that's.
I wish I could put that in business cards.
On LinkedIn, yeah.
I love it. So we've been able to tell stories for some of the biggest brands. I never thought I'd be filming with Unilever and Nike and McDonald's. And one of the things that our clients have in common is that it's really hard to tell people what your jobs are all about and give an authentic preview. And so I want to pause and give a moment of reflection for all of you guys who are watching. When was the moment that you knew you were in the right place with your job? Chris, you and I talked about this very briefly before we began, about, you know, being an entrepreneur, working for yourself. Yep. But reflect on this question, and we're going to come back to this. When was the moment that you knew you were in the right place?
Probably when, you know, I got some kind of thank you from, you know, a client or a listener of my podcast, maybe. And, you know, that really, that feedback really meant a lot to me.
Yeah, mine was when I was standing in that jet engine at American Airlines, filming what it's like to maintain and keep those aircraft safe. Just the surreality of being able to show jobs that nobody else has access to. That was my moment. But let's talk a little bit about the hiring process. So the hiring process is a little bit like packing one more bullet point on that job post, right? Fitting into skinny jeans. Oh, this candidate's a great fit. Or your Facebook profile. Job looks great. Here's what it is. But this is what it looks like for most people, right? This is an astounding data point. This is 2019. Only 1% of job posts have visuals. This is still a true statistic.
Yeah, that's I've been after employers to at least add a picture in there, you know, of something, of a person doing the job, or, you know, some kind of visual image, because it's such a, it's a visual web and people want to see rather than read.
Yeah, and that's including pictures, which is the crazy part, because pictures cost nearly nothing to produce. Yeah. And along all of this, we have about the attention span of a goldfish. This is true for any adult with a fully developed cognitive brain. You have about 8 seconds to capture our attention, the same as a goldfish. And so if we think about trying to attract talent to our brand, these are the people, the go-getters, the activists that we want. 8 seconds is not very long. I want to talk a little bit about the laws of attraction. So I have a psychology background. Brain science is fascinating to me. And so this is a couple of studies that Elena and I have looked into to just get an understanding of what the next generation of talent, Gen Z, that's coming into the workforce now looks like. And I think if we design solutions that appeal to the modern job seeker, even if we're focusing on Gen Z, these are going to be human-centered principles that any job seeker can appreciate. So a couple things that we know. 98% own smartphones. 85% report that they learn about new products and services on social media. This one is crazy, and I can attest to it just on an anecdotal level. 71% are watching more than 3 hours of video every day. So I have a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old, and YouTube is life, man. Just anything that you could explore is on YouTube. But 3 hours a day, that's taking out of TV time. 50% are part of a minority ethnicity by 2020. And so diversity stories and representation matter to the youngest job seekers, but everybody in the workforce. So just keep these laws of attraction in mind as we start talking about video.
Okay.
Social platforms, we're spending a lot of time on our phone. We talked about 3 hours of video a day. 70% of that is happening on YouTube. So people report YouTube as the app of the generation. We're receiving about 3,000 text messages a month. Most people prefer Facebook or prefer Instagram and Snapchat over Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn. And so this stat is always super interesting as we think about marketing spends. I would say as a business owner, Facebook is one of the first places that I think about advertising. And when it comes to talent, LinkedIn is another that comes to mind. But when we talk to younger job seekers, Instagram and Snapchat is where it's at. TikTok, keep your eye on that one. That one's up and coming. And I think while it might not have ties to recruiting right now, I think that's going to be a medium that's more and more popular where job seekers are. So there are some rules to being a good participant on social media. Keep your content short and sweet. Spice it up with visuals. Video is even better than photos, but any kind of visual. Highlight global locales and background, so representation of the different people that make up your workforce. Showcase how you impact the world. So what are you doing as a company, and what is your spot in the world, and who do you impact? That's a really important story. And then leverage the right social media and communication platform for your business. And so, you know, we work with companies that are hiring welders that might not be on LinkedIn, but they certainly are on Snapchat and Instagram and Facebook. So knowing enough about your industry, you guys probably know the channels to reach your people. So remember when I asked this question, we talked a little bit about remembering the moment.
Mm-hmm.
You guys have stories. Each one of the stories that you would tell yourself in your head, that has heart. Those are the kinds of things that job seekers are interested in hearing. And those stories translate very beautifully to recruiting on video. So a little data about job videos. A job posting with a video is viewed 3 times longer than a posting without. We use about 85% of our brain power to process visuals. So that's not text on page. That is a visual that is lighting up different parts of your brain than when you're reading. And you get about 46% more views with a posting that has a video. And as I mentioned, psychology background. So this data point always sticks with me. We recall about 65% of what we see and hear, and only 15% of what we read. So if the only way that a job seeker is interacting with your post is by reading bullet points, no matter how well written, they're still only going to remember about 15%. So video over streaming webinars is notoriously sketchy. So I shared a couple links in the chat, but I want to tell you a little story about SAC Wireless. So this is a company that came to us in partnership with Shaker Recruitment Marketing. They were working on a challenge. They're hiring tower climbers. So these are the people that are building the infrastructure of 5G in our country. And they can't build towers fast enough to launch 5G. So this is an in-demand kind of position. SAC was spending millions of dollars on agency recruiters, and they weren't getting the talent that would stay. And they discovered, as part of their exit interviews, is that people didn't understand until they got to a tower how high up it is. And so a very simple and very low-hanging fruit piece of content for them was a video that shows people climbing the towers. So we produced this video, and you guys can go check it out after the webinar, but it's a 1.5 minute piece of people who work on a tower climbing team talking about what it was like looking up at that tower, the safety and training that's required, what it feels like to work with a crew and travel with them and ride in the same truck. And so they launched this video on Facebook. So this was a native post, which is what I recommend doing with posts on Facebook. So instead of linking to Vimeo or YouTube, upload it directly to Facebook, which is what they did. And they got this incredible response that they never expected. People started sharing the crap out of this video. So they had over 100,000 views in the first couple of weeks. And what they noticed was that their team was sharing it out. Wives were sharing, hey, check out what my husband does. And it became this organic piece of content that people were excited to show others. And it was one of their best performing pieces of content to get people into the funnel, applying for the job, and hired. And so this one video translated to the savings of millions of dollars for SAC Wireless. And it was part of a larger campaign, but this piece of content really jump-started employee referrals, advertising, and it solved the problem of people not knowing that towers were 1,200 feet tall until they got to the job.
1,200 feet, huh?
Yes. When I watch that video, I still get heart palpitations. I was there when we filmed it. I would make a terrible tower climber, but for the right person, they see that and they're like, yep, I can build that.
Yep. Was SAC able to track the candidates coming in from the video? I mean, talk a little bit about how they might have done something.
Yes, so they had some infrastructure behind that Facebook post. So they did do some lightweight tracking, and the Facebook post was their best channel that led to actual hires. And I think there are a few reasons for this. One, the video is just great. It's shared by people in the industry, and tower climbers tend to all work in pods. And so a lot of them know each other. It's kind of a small world. And so that was a place that got eyeballs on content, maybe better than on LinkedIn or other channels. So that was part of it. And then they linked directly to the application. So there wasn't like a link to a careers page and then I have to go find the job and this and that. You could go directly from seeing this video to going into the application. And so I think that was a win. But there's certainly more data, and Crystal Stanfield, she's since moved on from SAC, but she speaks at a lot of events. I would encourage you to go see her. She breaks down exactly how much money they saved and how they did it and the rest of the ecosystem, which included things like microsites and using content in other channels.
Yep. Yeah, it looks like the video is about 2 minutes, 20 seconds, correct?
2 minutes, 20 seconds. Yeah, and that's a little long, and I think the content's interesting, and so it lends itself to be a couple seconds longer than I'd recommend. But typically we're looking to 1 to 2 minutes.
Yep.
So how'd they do it? This is what it could like to film a job video, right? You got 12 people on set, you got a grip. It could also look like this. For SAC, we did film with cameras and flew a drone just to get to the height and safely capture the position. But this is also what it can look like to film a job video. A cell phone, a tripod, a microphone, and 2 people talking. Baby steps, Bob.
Yep.
There's hope. So every single one of us has a cell phone. Every single one of our cell phones, if purchased in the last 5 to 7 years, has a powerful camera on it. There are a few things that you need to make your camera even more powerful. So we packaged this up, but I can also share a link after this session to exactly what you need. One is a tripod to keep your phone stable while you're filming. The second is a microphone. So phones are set up to capture audio as you're holding it up to your head. And so capturing across the room can be tricky. And with a microphone, you can capture beautiful audio and it's less than $25. And then a handheld tripod so that you can take nice, smooth pans. And with these 3 core things, you can really take your footage from being, amateur quality to pretty high quality. But let's start at the beginning. So one of the things that we've found as we've talked to companies is that you have to be in the right moment to be sharing video. You can't put lipstick on a pig. What you are is what is going to appear on video. And so I think most companies probably are ready for video, but we put together a little quiz so that you could do a little self-reflection of, is this a place that you really feel passionate about recruiting people for? And what are some of the stories that compel people to want to work with you? So it's just a self-reflection to see if video is a tool that you're ready for in your toolkit. So if you take that quiz, you feel good, you would recommend it as a place to work. Here's some of the ingredients for a great job video. Be specific. So for the tower climber, we picked a specific role. SAC was hiring many roles, but that role was specific enough that we needed to go film it separately. Keep it real. We talked about the fear of heights. We talked about how hard the position is, that you're working in weather conditions. 2 minutes tops. As Chris pointed out, we broke that rule, but 2 minutes is typically the sweet spot of how long candidates are going to give you. And show, don't tell. So while we might conduct the interviews in a quiet spot with good audio, good lighting, we want to see more than we want to see a talking head. So we want to go out and see the work environment. A little bit more about being specific. One video that I recommend to people is creating a realistic job preview. There's all kinds of content that you can create about your company. If you've not done video before, realistic job preview is a great place to start. And so you can start thinking about one job that might be high volume or that high turnover, an area of concentration for you. Talk to 1 to 2 people who are in the job, who are actually working in that role. And then keep it real. So as I mentioned at the beginning, we take an ethnographic research mindset. So come in as a researcher. You might think you know what the job is on paper, but be prepared to discover and be open to what you see. You want to capture productivity, don't stop it. Don't use a script, use an interview guide. And remember that employees are the expert of their experience. So again, there's always the job description, and then there's the, okay, hey, this is how it really works. Those are the things that you're looking for. Most importantly, show the stuff that makes people quit. This view here is why I would quit on my first day as a tower climber. You want to show people that. If there are things about your work environment, we have one client that it's an armored car service that all of the employees are armed. And for some people, that would be a deal breaker. And you don't want them to discover that deal breaker in their training or their first 90 days. That should come as early in the process as possible so people can self-select in or self-select out. 2 minutes tops. I checked our data today. We have a whole bunch of job videos that are live through our accounts. And I think the stat today was 1 minute and 49 seconds on average that people will watch, but it's less than 2 minutes. And so giving people the top 2 to 3 things that are most important to share about the job and spending about 30 seconds on each one of those is a good framework.
Excellent.
Show, don't tell. So you want to minimize talking heads. You want to show the work environment. One question I get a lot is, what if we're in a boring office? That's a great question. If you're in a boring office, show the boring office, but also show the impact of your work. So if you're working on, in banking, if you should certainly show inside of the branch of what are your banks, but maybe also go out to the community and showcase some of the things that you're doing in the community, whether that's financial literacy training or other impact that you have. Another example of this is in manufacturing. So while we might capture footage inside of the plant, we also want to go see what those products do in people's lives, because that's important to candidates. So if you're building a medical device that helps give people allergy medicine faster and saves lives, that's an important part of the story to tell visually. So there are ways that you can depict the boring office. You should be realistic about that. If they're going to work in a boring office, show it, but also show the impact and how people stay committed to the work.
Yeah, I also say too, you can show your employees in action, outside the office too. Maybe if you're having a dinner or a happy hour or something like that, you can.
Oh, absolutely. Events, anything that the team members are getting together after work, anything that you can show to give people a flavor of what the experience is like working with you, that's the stuff you want to film.
Yep.
Teamwork makes the dream work. So I've got a couple of clips, and they're, of course, not going to play nicely over the stream, but using employee-generated clips is one of the easiest ways that you can capture content. Giving people a quick direction of, hey, can you take some footage across your work environment this morning, and give them some ideas of what they could shoot. You will quickly get tons of different perspectives of your workplace from the eyes of the people who work in the jobs. And so employee-generated content, opening filming up to anybody who's willing to contribute, is a really easy, fast way to get video. So this is one that we did in that armored car company. Here's another one. This job is a raw video clip of transportation assistance. No, what it really is driving really expensive custom order cars off of the boat at the Port of Baltimore. And this is a really different kind of job than what you would think on paper. And so just getting a couple of employee generated clips showing the car, hearing the sound of the engine rev gives people a much more tangible feel for the job.
That's cool.
And so we didn't watch the videos. But I do like to pose the question, what did you notice about any of the visuals that we showed about that work environment?
It was real.
It was real, yeah. And you can see that working at that armored car service is very different than the transportation assistant, is very different than the tower climber. Just the quick visual, you will remember that better, 65% more. And you'll be able to relate back to it, to that visual experience of watching that video when you go to get the recruiter phone call or apply for the position.
Abby, question. Do you,
Yeah.
when you go to your clients and you first talk to them, do you kind of look and see if their employees are already sharing stuff on social media they might not know about?
That is a great question. Yes, a lot of our clients actually have hashtags or employee-generated groups. So Nike, for example, has Swoosh Life, and that's customers and employees sharing experience alike. And so sourcing stuff that people are already sharing about your brand is a great way to just kind of do an analysis of what's out there about us. And oftentimes it's a great way to identify people who are already filming stuff and would be more than happy to be an ambassador or contribute their footage to your project. But that's a wonderful question. And if you don't have that yet, you will also notice the people who are super active on social media. Those are the people that are top of my list for the people that I want to enlist in filming. If somebody is super comfortable sharing cat videos or kid videos, those are the people that are going to be excited about filming their workplace. So we talked a little bit about what you need. Tripod, microphone, handheld tripod, and a lens cleaner. Phones are filthy. Cleaning them off makes the video much crispier. Capturing quality video, audio is unforgivable. So earlier when we first started the echo, I was speaking super slowly because I was listening to myself. Audio can be super distracting, right? And so you can forgive bad video to some extent. You cannot forgive bad audio. It's extremely distracting to the brain if there's something crackly or something that you can't quite hear the person speaking. So audio first, always use a microphone. Second is lighting. The sun is your friend. Camera phones are super sensitive to light and they're trying to get better, but the more that you can utilize natural outdoor lighting, so sitting by a window, or generate your own lighting, get a halo light that costs $40 on Amazon. Lighting is going to take your quality from super amateur to much more professional looking, and it'll actually capture the 1080 or 4K level of quality. Without good lighting, your phone can't capture that resolution. Film horizontally. This is always controversial, and I'm constantly reevaluating this. But for now, phones capture higher resolution if you hold them horizontally. We see more mediums come up like Instagram, Snapchat, where vertical is how people are capturing and sharing. So I think we need to keep an eye on this. But the most important thing is keeping it consistent. So if you're going to edit clips together, you want them either to all be horizontal or all be vertical. And lastly, heart. So letting people show who they really are, not being too corporate-y or too prescriptive, and show the nerdiness. Like, I'm a job nerd. I'm happy saying that. You have nerds at your company too, and you want to show that flair. So if you've got engineers that geek out about something, capture the heart and the spirit of why they're excited to work with you, and that will be super attractive to other people who nerd out in that way. We've got a ton of tutorials on our site that just show you how to set up your audio. Some of the technical mistakes we made early in the first couple years filming on phones, we've made a tutorial for everything so that you can capture the best quality possible on your phone. Lighting, how to film B-roll. So let's talk a little bit about B-roll.
Yeah, explain B-roll to the audience.
Yeah, so when we think about the ingredients of a job video, the first is an interview. You want to talk to somebody on camera about their experience working. The second piece is all the visual footage. So we said minimize talking heads. The interview is a talking head. You want to go out and capture a visual B-roll of everything that they talked about. So if a nurse is talking about checking vitals, in your mind, you should be making a note of take some B-roll of checking vitals, take some B-roll of filling out patient paperwork. The B-roll is all of the beautiful video footage that goes on top of the interview so that we can see what the person is talking about. I also shared in the chat an example of a recruiting video we did recently for Wendy's, and you can see how we used their values on top of what people were saying to really tie their story together. And so here's how we captured that video. We use this exact list of questions. Tell me who you are, where we're at today. What do you do here? Walk me through a typical day. And when people walk you through a typical day, they gloss over and they move quickly because they assume you know what they're talking about. So sometimes I say, be detailed, pretend I'm your 12-year-old niece and I have no idea what you do. And usually when people speak with that filter, that brings them to a level that's tangible and shareable outside of your organization. But all of us do this when we're talking about our work. We might get super technical, jargony. So just encourage them to talk to you as if this is the first time you're hearing about this. What surprised you when you started this job? What's challenging? Being real about that. What's the best part about working here? What's your favorite memory from working here? And what advice would you have for somebody that is just joining your team? I would add that question from the beginning when we talked about when was the moment you knew you were in the right place? The reason I like this question, Chris, you told a story. I told a story. I didn't just say, the people are great, the culture is great. What you don't want is general speak. You want to hear people's stories. Well, tell me a time where you really felt like your team was great. And then those stories are what tell beautiful recruiting stories. This is some ideas for B-roll. So hands working, work in action, the work environment, conference rooms, common areas, 2 to 3 main tasks of the position, team interaction, and for those boring officey jobs, impact. What is happening outside of the office as a result of the work that you're doing inside of the office? All right, a moment to reflect. Anybody have any questions so far?
Nothing yet in the chat, but if you do, feel free to throw them in there and I'll ask Abby. Abby, I have a question for you is, what's been the, in terms of your client base, what's been the most interesting piece of feedback you've gotten from them after doing a video like this? So what stands out to you?
Oh, that's a great question. So often we get this feedback, and I always love hearing it, is that recruiters who've been recruiting for this role for years learn something new about the experience of working in that job. So you can recruit for, a warehouse position in a refrigerated facility, but until you've put your coat on and gone 40 degrees below zero, it's really hard to have empathy in a tangible way for what that position's like. And a lot of recruiters go back to their work with that experience. And so filming is this discovery for them and this opportunity to engage with the job in a way that they don't normally get. So people often really enjoy filming. It might seem stressful for the first time that you do it, but the feedback overwhelmingly that I love getting, that we get a lot. I didn't know how much fun it was going to be. I didn't realize how much I was going to learn about this job. I've been recruiting for it for 20 years, right? We went through burning questions. I'm going to share some questions I get a lot.
Okay.
Oh no, our trade secrets, right? We work in a proprietary industry, right? I work in space and engineering a product that is top secret. That's okay. It's not just about what you make. It's about why it matters. It's your passion projects, celebrations, and your team coming together, training. And so you don't focus on proprietary processes. Obviously, you don't want to sell out your secrets and tank the business, but you do want to show what the employee experience is based on that position. And so avoid things as you're filming, like specs on a drawing, any kind of measurements in manufacturing, any kind of specific code or processes. You don't want to capture that stuff. Privacy. This might look familiar to you, Chris. What about privacy? So we filmed in one of the more challenging work environments that we've filmed in a couple of weeks ago. We were in Connecticut. We were filming with the Department of Corrections, who they're working on recruiting physicians to work in facilities. And so there's 2 challenges to work through. One is HIPAA, right? We can't share patients on camera. And the second is we can't show inmates on camera. And so a really easy workaround that I've worked with are corrections positions in other states and areas, and our healthcare has been using stand-ins. And so if you have someone else on the team that will play the role of patient or play the role of customer or any other sensitive role in your video, that will allow you to capture it. You'll get them to sign a media release and you'll have permission to share their footage, but you're not releasing anything about your customers or your patients or people that are of a sensitive nature. And stand-ins allow you to still show bits of the job that are important. So showing the exam, taking vitals, that's a huge part of this role. And so to remove it from the video altogether wouldn't have done it justice. So stand-ins on a volunteer basis is something that we've had a ton of success with.
Okay, great.
Another question. Compliance is life. We work in the aviation industry, so we have filmed a ton of compliant-driven and union-driven work environments. And my advice for that is to have somebody who is a union steward, if you're a union shop or a union environment, and a safety and compliance person film with you. And so you have them right alongside for the journey. They can tell you what is and is not shareable on camera. So while you probably all have compliant workplaces, there are times when things are done that are maybe questionable, not exactly up to policy, but a workaround. And just having those people in field with you as you're capturing content gets them on your side. They're part of the process. They're an engaged stakeholder, and it prevents you from capturing anything that's not showing you in your best light. So getting them involved early in planning and come along for filming, that's been successful also. I'm broke, baby. I ain't got no money. This is another question I get. You don't need $100,000 or even $1,000 to make your first video. You can do this for free. So to do this for free, let's talk a little bit about editing. This is one of the biggest questions people have. There are a few options. You can do it in one take. I filmed a video earlier this morning for an internal team thing. I did it in one take. No editing required. iMovie, Windows Movie Maker, those are both low cost or free depending on your computer, and easy editing programs that you can pull in the interview, the B-roll, and some music to go along with that. Filmic Pro is an app it's available for iPhone and I believe Android. It's about $20 and you can actually edit video on your phone. I'll mention that iMovie is also available on iPhone.
Yeah, I've used that one.
You've used that one? Yeah. What's your experience been?
It's okay. I mean, you can just trim the clip. You can add some, overlays of text on there and stuff like that.
Yeah, I find my phone to be a little small to
yeah.
edit on. So I'm a huge fan of like popping everything over to my laptop and throw it in iMovie. But like my daughter will edit in iMovie on her iPad. And so depending on, how big your fingers are, I guess. Mine are too fat for the phone, but Filmic Pro is an awesome app. And then there are editing services. So this is something, full disclosure, that Skill Scout does, but there are other options or interns that you can come and, get to come in and help film and edit your video. We see a lot of our companies engaging interns in this process, not just because they're digital natives and awesome at it, but also they have a fresh perspective of your company. And so having them film, you often get things that you might not, or things that you didn't think about filming. That's been interesting. This is how you put it together. It's like a cake. Layer 1 is the interview. Layer 2 is the music. Layer 3 is the B-roll. And so I just took a screenshot of what it looks like in iMovie. So you can see the green thing at the bottom. That's my music track. There are lots of libraries. You have to be careful when you're adding a music track that you own license. So if it's Creative Commons, that's something that can be shared anywhere as long as you credit that person. There are other libraries where you can purchase a song. Don't use a song off the radio or off of a pop singer. Don't use a recognizable track because that will quickly get flagged on social media and you don't have permission to use it unless you pay thousands of dollars to, whoever made it. So find a royalty-free or Creative Commons music track. And then this middle piece is my main content. So this would be my interview. And then the little piece on top is B-roll. And so you can add clips at different moments in your interview to depict what the person is saying. So once you've edited, how do you use this? One very easy place is on the job posting itself. So on our job post, we have a video about what it's like to be an editor at Skill Scout. And then we ask them what stands out in the video. And so not only do we know that they've watched the video, but they can talk about things that are the same or different from their other work experience. And we get really rich data about the candidates in that question. On the job post is a really great way to use it.
And it should be at the top of the job post too, right?
It should be at the very top. Yeah. Or depending on how your microsite is laid out, if you have a specific page for a job, it could be one of a couple pieces of content. But yes, prominently featured so that if they're going to watch one thing, it's that.
Right. Yep.
Employer referrals. This is way better than sending out an email saying, hey, we're hiring. Giving people a piece of content that they can send to their friends to get a much richer information about the job. That's a great way to use video. You saw this with SAC Wireless, putting it on Facebook. We see a lot of companies using video to onboard people into their hiring process. So as you can imagine, getting hired as a flight attendant, it's a process. So we just did a series with American Airlines giving people an idea of what this process looks like. And it gives candidates a more human-centered experience as they're going through what can be, a difficult to understand and kind of long process. And so using videos at different moments in your hiring process to be more human, to connect with them on a more human level, we see a lot of companies doing this. In your recruiting outreach, so maybe somebody's applied and you want to send them a little video with a little bit more information, or you want to send them a video of the person that's going to be interviewing them to prepare them for the interview. There are lots of ways that you can use video in your email communications. One tool that I find super helpful is called Loom. Use loom.com. And it basically allows you to film. You have to use a Chrome browser, but it allows you to film and then embed that video into an email. And the video comes across as a GIF. And so as somebody opens the email, this picture starts moving and they can see immediately that it's a video. They click on it and they can watch it right in the email. It doesn't pop them out to another site. It just is right inside the email. And that's a free tool that's super helpful.
It's free?
It's free. Mm-hmm. There might be a cap on how many you can send, but I send a whole lot of them and I haven't paid for it yet. Don't tell them. They might start charging me now. It's called useloom.com. LOOM.
Great. I just threw it in the chat there. Thanks, Abby.
Yeah, thanks. A word about audio. Silent is the new black. Data coming back day to day. It's getting more and more dire that people are not listening to the videos. 70% of mobile traffic is video, and 85% of that is viewed with no sound. I am guilty, right? We watch video in places that we're on the train, we're commuting, we're at home, we're cooking dinner, and we don't necessarily want to listen to it, but we do want to watch. And so how can we design around a good user experience? The easiest way is captions. Captions aren't just great because it makes it better for the person watching, but also it generates text-based information about that video that's used in SEO. So if you have a caption file in with your video, that content will help you appear higher in the algorithm. So captions are great. You can auto-generate them in YouTube to mixed success. I've also used this service that I absolutely love called Rev. Yep. Rev is a paid service that you can share a video, either upload or through YouTube or Vimeo, and it will generate captions. It's a real person typing it, so it's way more accurate than the YouTube captions. You can also translate. So we do this with a lot of our clients that have international offices where, we might film in English, but it's helpful to be able to share it in Chinese or in Spanish or another language. Rev has translations available, which has been really helpful.
There's I have an app, Abby, called it's called Clip-O-Matic.
Ooh.
And it does, you do your video, it records the audio, it transcribes the audio within the app, and then you can go back and it'll show you the transcript of it. You can go back and correct, the certain words that it didn't quite pick up on. Mm-hmm. You can publish it as a single file out there with the subtitles.
That's awesome. And subtitles are not just important for posting on video sites, but also social media. And so being able to generate that SRT, I have a whole blog post about much ado about captions because it's gotten complicated and it's much better from a user standpoint, but the infrastructure of how do you do that has gotten a little bit trickier. But that's awesome. I'm gonna have to check that out.
Yep.
Text callouts. I'm sure you guys have seen these videos before, recipes where they label each piece. I actually didn't know until I started doing research that there was sound to these videos. There's actually like a dude talking as this is going on, but you don't need it because they've labeled with text. This can be done in iMovie. It can be done in other editing programs that you just put labels on things. I could see doing this with uniforms where there's pieces of a uniform for the flight attendants, you know, if they're getting new uniforms or something's happening with uniform that's important to communicate, you can use a call out of just somebody standing there in uniform and talk about PPE, protective clothing, steel toe boots, you know, different parts of the uniform that are important. Call outs are cool. We're going to see more of them. And lastly, text narration. This is a beautiful video put out by the National Park Service. It's simple B-roll of a national park, and then they share messages just through text. And you can see the little green bar at the bottom of the screen. It also tells you how long the video is, which I thought was just a beautiful user experience. I'm super impatient, so knowing that I only have a little bit of that bar left, I watched the whole thing. So text on top of B-roll, that's a really easy thing to do in iMovie or other simple editing programs. And the footage that you have to capture for it is just B-roll. There's no audio. There's no people talking on camera. It's just footage of your workplace. All right, that wraps us up to final questions.
Yeah, we do have one more in the chat room that didn't get a chance before, but Jasmine's asking, how often should we update videos for the same position?
That's a great question. So we see our companies updating them about every year, depending on the position. So it's going to be really dependent on, you know, how evergreen the tasks of the role are. So for example, nursing, that job's going to be relatively the same across a 2 to 3 year span. And so that's a little bit more evergreen. Tech positions, their shelf life is just shorter if you go into the details of the actual tech stack that people are working with and that kind of thing. So if you want a video like that to last longer, talk a little bit less about the technology of today's moment and talk a little bit more about the greater context of that job. But I would say we encourage companies to put as much video out as possible, even if that means Instagram stories, stuff that goes away really quickly. Just getting in the habit of sharing on video will make each video faster and easier to produce. So if your first video you keep for a year and then you update it and you get more and more comfortable with the filming process, we have some companies that weekly are putting out videos, not all job videos, but certainly content that engages their job seeker audience.
Good stuff.
And then, of course, if you're going through any kind of change in that role, video is a great opportunity to communicate that internally and externally. So we have a company that's going through a massive uniform change and it impacts their employees. And so they're making video pieces about the change, why the change is coming. And some of those are internal facing and some of those are external facing.
You have a super fan in the chat there. Mary says she, after listening to your presentation at our HR meetings in Iowa, we bought the equipment and use it all the time. Appreciate the
Yay! Oh, I remember you. That's awesome. That makes my day. Video does not have to be expensive. It does not have to be out of reach. I actually taught my college roommate how to make video. She and her sister own a daycare, and I taught her how to film, how to do interviews, and she produced her own video too. And so I think small and mid-sized businesses, this is perfect to get started. And as you grow and see more opportunity, we see a lot of companies getting the bug for video and then start to do onboarding or training or other ways to communicate through video. Yay, Mary, good job.
Yep. Awesome. Well, Abby, thank you very much for this. Very informative and a lot of good stuff in this video. I'll have to go watch it again.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
And, tell everyone where to connect with you and Skill Scout.
Yeah, so as a participant in this webinar, I nerd out on this stuff. I'd be happy to do a free 20-minute video storyboarding session. If you have any kind of questions about how video could work for you, I'm happy to chat with you. My email is abby@skillscout.me. You can get me on Twitter. I'm pretty easy to find. So get in contact. I love doing brainstorming sessions because there's probably not a challenge that we have not seen with one of our clients. So happy to chat through any questions you have.
Awesome. Well, we are about 10 minutes out, so I guess we'll end it there, Abby. Again, appreciate the talk today. Good stuff. And we look forward to talking with you next year, too, if we could.
Yes, thanks so much, Chris. Loved having this opportunity.
All right. Well, that's it for today, guys. Last show of the year, so I'll see you all in 2020. And if you're a vendor out there, you want to do, teach something about your industry and your product, whatever, let me know, chris@regtechmedia.com. And that's it. Happy Thanksgiving, Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year. All right, Abby, take care.
Bye, Chris.